My name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of West Cornwall, and this is the edition 2 of the book there. I'll put a link below. Debt Slavery, the Economics of a Banking Mafia, edition 2. So I did a video, a few videos back, about money creation on steroids, and so far nobody's been able to tell me I'm wrong about what I believe I've found. The very few people actually understand what I'm talking about, agree, and even less of them actually see the significance of it. So I published the updated book, and I've invested my own money that I haven't got because I'm a debt slave into a professional book cover, because I believe this. Again, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but tell me why I'm wrong. Yeah. And I've sent this information to various people who should understand this. Nobody's either don't get back to me, or what I've found over the years, when you question people's beliefs or you question things that you think they should know, nobody likes a smart ass, know-it-all, uneducated window cleaner for a council estate in Manchester telling them they're wrong or telling them there's more to it. People don't like that. But it's not about me, it's not about their ego, my ego, this is about the information. Is the information correct in that video, money creation on steroids? If that information's wrong, I'll do another video, I'll put my hands up and I'll explain why I got it wrong. Because the important thing is the information. Because I put myself out there before I republished the book. Look, if I'm wrong, tell me. Nobody's been able to show me I'm wrong, and the very few people that actually understand this have said that I'm right. I don't believe, as far as I can see, anyone had ever figured this out. I've never seen it on the internet anywhere, people talking about this process of converting credit into real money, because most people don't understand the difference between credit and real money. Most people don't understand the difference between a promissory note based on real money and a promissory note based on credit, because they're not the same. A promissory note based on real money, an exchange of money, has a value, face value. A promissory note of credit in reality has a value of 0, because credit isn't real money. And I explain that in the video, I explain that in the book. Economists, people who are in this movement, either haven't seen it because they get lost in the smokescreen of complicated economics, or it's so complicated. It was the 2008 financial crash that got me into alternative research. And my investigations on my other book with Patrick, Medical Despotism, when you're looking into the nature of illness, so-called infections, contagion, things like that, you have to go back to the very, very foundation. And what I discovered, this is my own personal method, there's 3 basic questions you need to ask. What actually is it am I trying to investigate? Where does it come from? And how does it function? When you look into so-called germ theory, then that becomes very clear. When you look into money, you have to ask the question, what is money or currency in this case? Where does it come from? How does it function? Most people, the vast majority of people don't go to that level. So if your foundation isn't right, everything else is going to be wrong. The foundation is everything is free. Everything. The resources of the planet, our imagination, costs you a little bit of energy to think, but that's not a problem. We have needs and wants, things we need to survive. We use our imagination. We look at the resources we've got around us, and then you physically use energy to create, build, what you need to survive. All that is free. So the idea of money, which doesn't have to be paper, money is just a thing you value. So anything can be money, absolutely anything. And I've gone into this in previous videos. Anything that you have a value can be money and can be exchanged if you wish to exchange. We don't need to have any kind of basis to exchange. We can just freely give. Something called a gift economy. If everybody gives, everybody receives. But let's be honest, humanity isn't at that level. Well, maybe centuries away from evolving to be at that level. So there's nothing wrong with what we would say exchanging based on value, but that is a human creation. And what you value is a personal thing. And this is where the gold nonsense comes in, which I've gone into in the book and other videos. You can value gold and you could be free to exchange it. I don't value gold. When they say intrinsic value, I'm sure if you're a jeweler, you'd value gold. You'd want gold because you can do something with it. But value is personal. I don't value gold. So for me, if I've got a piece of gold passing around, I'm passing around an illusion or a delusion. Yeah, this is why I state clearly for a national currency. A national currency, remember, currency is paper or notes that represent the real value. I would say a national credit, because then you're aware that you're passing around a token which represents value. Because the only value is us, the resources, our imagination, our willingness to work and create. When you say, oh, we should have a gold-backed currency, straight away, you're putting the value on the gold. Like I say, gold really only has a value to jewelers. What do most people do with the gold bars? They stick them in a vault. Where's the intrinsic value in that? Utter nonsense. But what you're doing, you're taking people away. You're putting the value onto the gold, and psychologically, people are thinking the value is in the gold. It's not. We're the value. The earth is the value, the resources, our imagination, how we use that imagination to work to provide our needs. That is the real value. When you have a credit-based monetary system, currency, have national credit, so I'm just talking about the infrastructure, the basic currency of the nation. When it's based on credit and we're educated to understand the credit, it's just a token that represents your productive energies, we all understand the system. And again, when you put it on gold, people are lost again. They've lost the foundation. Now, I'm not saying you can, beyond having a national currency, exchange in as many ways as you want, because we all value things different. You can have barter, direct change. You can trade in gold. You can trade in silver if you value it. Yeah, that's a personal thing. But as a national currency, to stay closer to the truth, which is everything is free and the true value is us and the resources, a piece of paper, it's irrelevant what it's made out of, as long as it's controlled and comes into existence, represented a productive energy, it's not going to be forged, and you can control the quantity based on production. So the production dictates how much money comes into circulation, not the other way around as we've got now. We'd have a fantastic system, then we'd all thrive. That's not happening. I break that all down in the book in very simple terms. Who's behind it? What is their end game? There's other nuances where I go into the book, but not too much, because I don't want to get people away from the simplicity of understanding everything is free. All we need as a national currency is a token that represents the productive energies. What kind of production we need. Simple as that. It's simple as that. So I want to stick it on that. There's a couple of things in the book that I've slightly gone into, which is how the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds in their own website went into China to promote the Industrial Revolution there. So there is no economic war with China and the West. Not when when it's run by the same people. And again, people talk about it was America who went into Saudi Arabia and kind of threatened them and said, listen, you can have this and that. You have our protection, and we want the dollar-backed oil currency there to give power to the American dollar by controlling Saudi Arabia. I would say it was the Rockefellers, because what's happened is beyond nations. It was the Rockefeller banking empire who were behind big pharma, pharmaceuticals, etc. So I've tried to expand the picture a little bit, but not too much, because the focus of the book is to stick to the basic principles. I've done talks on this, videos, speak to a lot of people about this, and then they'll go and watch the BBC or some economic program and they get completely lost again, because they get dragged into this smoke screen of what I call the economics of a banking mafia. And it constantly happens. It is simple. You will not, in my opinion, get it explained in a more simple way than this. And then if you're not going to get it, then I don't know what to do, because it is that simple. But you have to keep going through your mind. Most of it is just a smoke screen of complicated economics that is not based on a real foundation. Most people who go to the School of Economics, they have certain ways of thinking of how to move money about, but they're not going to the foundation. And that's deliberate, obviously. They don't want people to know the truth. The only economist I know who I would claim knows what he's talking about is Richard Werner, the economist. He does talk about globalism, that there is a bigger picture I think he needs to go into. But if you're looking for an economist who actually, I believe, knows what he's talking about, he would be the person. I put links on previous videos to Richard Werner's website. He's very outspoken. But I think there's slightly another level. It's like people who think Trump's against the deep state, utter nonsense. There's another level. Yeah, so there's always other levels to go. And I'm hoping with what I've found, this unique piece of information, I've put myself out there in the prospect that I might get shot down because I might be wrong, but I can't see where I'm wrong. The people who understand it have agreed with it, and no one's told me I'm wrong. Because if you're going to tell me wrong, you have to tell me what is it I've missed. Because I've said before, I've never looked into the economics of a banking mafia. I've looked into debt slavery, because that is the gambling, the economics of a banking mafia, what I call it, that we need to get rid of. So why would I need to know that? It's like trying to, when Patrick walked out of the medical profession over 20 years ago, he wasn't interested why people died, why people get ill. Where's the benefit in that? He wants to know what it is that keeps people healthy, makes people survive. That's what you want to know. You don't want to know how to do it. You don't want to be an expert in how to do it badly. We don't need to know that. So I've never looked into the economics of a banking mafia until a few months ago, when I seen something I'd never seen before in the film The Big Short. I broke it down. I've challenged myself in private, I'm in public with people to see, is my thinking right on this? Pretty much, like I say, everyone's agreed, or they haven't understood it, but the ones who did understood it have agreed. And this, in my opinion, is how you take a bad monetary system that doesn't work for the people into a fraudulent monetary system. Clear fraud, to show how banks are converting credit into real money, and therefore money printing, which is illegal because banks cannot print money. Only the central bank, with permission of the Treasury, can print what I would call real money. Yeah, currency. Banks are not allowed to do that. And when you understand the difference between credit, extending credit, and an actual loan of real money, then it starts to make sense. So this is the book. I'll put a link below. Pretty much most of the information, not every detail, but a lot of the information in this book, you'll find broken down into bits and pieces on this channel. Is this channel, all I use it for really is the monetary system and the human condition and health with Patrick. So if you want it for free, you can break it down. If you want the actual book, then unfortunately you'll have to buy it. That's just how it is. And if I am wrong, please tell me. I'll do another video. I'll hold my hands up and I say I got it wrong because of ABC, whatever. This is not about ego. This is pursuing the truth. As I see it at the moment, this information is correct. Unless somebody can tell me I'm wrong. And it's the only explanation I can see on why we've got multi-trillionaires. When I was growing up, if you were a millionaire, you were rich, set for life. Now a millionaire is kind of like upper working class. You're not even set for life. Then you had multimillionaires, billionaires, multi-billionaires. Now we have trillionaires. Where is all this money come from? I believe this is where it's coming from. If you just take mortgage-backed securities alone, according to the Fed, we're talking about 11 trillion out there. So that's credit being converted into real money by the hundreds of billions a year. And as I've stated, they're not only doing this trick with mortgages, but they can do it with credit cards, student debt, car finances, other loans, business loans. Any debt they can, which is a debt of credit, they can convert into real money for themselves, which is fraud. The problem is nobody understands it because of this smoke screen around it. When you blow it away, which I did a few months ago, it becomes clear. There we have it.